The U.S. Defense Secretary rallies troops deploying to West Africa to help in the fight against Ebola. The town of Ferguson, Missouri, grapples with race relations after a teen's shooting death. And Beyoncé's sister Solange releases a joyful wedding video. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. An international human rights group alleges that executions and cold-blooded murders were part of a brutal crackdown by police in the Democratic Republic of Congo during an anti-gang operation between November 2013 to February 2014. Human Rights Watch says police in the capital, Kinshasa, killed at least 51, mostly unarmed young men outside of their homes or in markets to intimidate the population. It says police also are responsible for the disappearance of at least 33 others.
They went neighborhood to neighborhood targeting suspected Kaluna. Often they didn't carry out investigations to find out who really were the Kaluna, and people who had nothing to do with the phenomena were targeted. In some cases, they dragged young men and boys out of their houses. Frequently, they beat them and humiliated them in front of their family members and neighbors. And in some cases, they were shot dead in front of their homes, in front of witnesses, in front of their family members.
Well, the report released Tuesday is based on witness testimony into the police operation Likofi, which was launched last November to decrease criminal gangs in the capital. The rights group urged that the commander of the operation be suspended and that a judicial investigation be launched to prosecute those responsible. Congo's government could not immediately be reached for comment. Well, turning to the Ebola crisis, football superstar Didier Drogba of Chelsea and Real Madrid's Cristiano Ronaldo have teamed up with FIFA and the Confederation of African Football to raise awareness about Ebola. Underneath their slogan, "Together we can beat Ebola," and the hashtag "We can beat Ebola," the 11 Against Ebola campaign promotes 11 simple health messages. Each health message, such as report unusual illnesses, has been chosen to improve public understanding about how the virus spreads and ways to reduce the risk of infection. Well, meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, health officials have confirmed that a patient is being tested for Ebola after showing early symptoms of the disease. The individual has traveled to West Africa in the past and is being tested as a precautionary measure. The United States has sent about 2,200 troops to West Africa to help fight Ebola. About half of the soldiers come from the Army base in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb visited the base with Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel to get a first-hand look at the training the team undergoes before their deployment.
All right, now you're going to take your boots off.
The fight against Ebola starts here, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where more than 1,000 soldiers have deployed to West Africa.
There you go.
These troops are running through rigorous training to learn how to protect themselves from contamination. Some will deploy to Liberia in the next week.
I wouldn't say I'm too nervous. I'm just kind of like excited, maybe to see new things, be like new experiences, stuff like that. I know it's going to be a different mission rather than like going to Afghanistan or something like that.
You're all right.
Many soldiers will help with the construction of Ebola treatment units.
You're going to go underneath your suit closest to your ACU.
Others, like physician assistant Alvaro Calvillo, will help train healthcare workers staffing the units.
So,
how does it feel?
Feels pretty comfortable. I mean, I could definitely do some medicine with this.
appreciate it, sir.
Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel visited the soldiers Tuesday as many prepared for deployment.
Thank you.
He said their work provides critically important support to healthcare workers fighting Ebola in West Africa.
What you all have been responsible for so far has made a huge difference. A huge difference.
You're gonna toss that in the trash?
While the troops are not supposed to come into direct contact with Ebola patients, they say their weeks of training and the 21-day quarantine upon their return from West Africa will help keep the virus contained. Carla Babb, VOA News, Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
just no, not that.
Well, U.S. President Barack Obama says there is no alliance with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the fight against Islamic State militants. But as VOA State Department correspondent Scott Stearns reports, some Syrian rebels say U.S.-led airstrikes are helping Damascus.
Since the start of U.S.-led airstrikes against Islamic State militants, Syrian government troops have pulled back in their fight against the group. But President Obama says that's not the result of any alliance with President Assad in combating those fighters, who are also known as ISIL.
We have communicated to the Syrian regime that when we operate going after ISIL in their airspace, that they would be well advised not to take us on. But beyond that, there's no expectation that we are going to, in some ways, enter an alliance with Assad. He is not credible in that country.
Moderate Syrian rebels, with whom the Obama administration is hoping to fight the Islamic State, say airstrikes allow Syrian forces time to attack them, and have turned some public opinion against the coalition, as attacks against enemies of President Assad are seen as helping him. That's led to questions in Washington about its approach, says American University professor Guy Ziv.
And that's arguably the toughest, most complicated piece of this puzzle, what to do about Bashar Assad. And there are disagreements within the administration as to whether or not the current bombing campaign is helping or harming Assad, and whether or not Assad will ultimately be strengthened or weakened by our intervention in the Middle East at this time.
U.S. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki says there are frequent meetings and discussion about U.S. strategy in Syria, but no formal review.
Are there hard questions being asked? Yes. Is there a discussion internally about how we should continue to adjust and consider a range of options? Of course. Syria is one of the most challenging crises we face, and it should come as no surprise that we're engaged in an ongoing discussion and debate about a range of options.
In some of its military options against the Islamic State, the Obama administration may find unintended consequences, says Cato Institute analyst Justin Logan.
A lot of the things that we do to try to fight terrorism in the Middle East don't have a good effect on terrorism, and may even have a bad effect by making people hate us in that part of the world, and thereby more amenable to the claims terrorist groups make.
How best to conduct this fight and which groups to support in what ways are questions facing both Washington and Assad ally Iran, says Georgetown University professor Nora Ben-Sahel.
If it were clear who to work with on the ground against ISIS and how that was aligned against Bashar al-Assad, everybody would have an easier time calculating its interest.
On a visit to Iraq that included talks with Kurdish leaders, the top U.S. General Martin Dempsey said momentum in the fight against the Islamic State is starting to turn, but he predicted a drawn-out campaign lasting years. Scott Stearns, VOA News at the State Department.
Well, the North African jihadist group Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has released a video showing a French and a Dutch hostage pleading with their respective governments to negotiate their release. The video, posted on a popular jihad website by the group's media branch, is divided into two scenes showing each hostage in a different location. The first shows Frenchman Serge Lazarevich, who has been held for 3 years, speaking in French. He says he is ill and begs French President François Hollande to seek his release. Dutch national Jacques Richke also pleaded for his release in the video. Both men were kidnapped in 2011 in Mali. Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan is set to ask the National Assembly to extend a state of emergency in 3 northeastern states hit by an Islamist insurgency when it expires this week. Mr. Jonathan ordered troops into Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states in May of last year. The emergency laws were last extended in May this year. Now, for more perspective on this situation, we are joined by Leo Kayan, Chief of VOA's House of Service. Hello, Leo.
Hey, Vincent.
Yes, now let's start with the extension of this state of emergency. The last few months when it has been in place, what difference has it made?
Well, there's hardly any difference, Vincent, because the last 18 months have shown us that there are more refugees now out of Northeast living in Kano, about 3,000. There are more refugees living in Niger Republic, more in Cameroon now. Besides that, within the same emergency period, Chibok girls were abducted. We've had more attacks coming from Boko Haram. More land has been captured by them in Northeast. and they become more active.
And we know that there were attacks recently. In fact, at some point, Boko Haram claimed it had taken Chibok. The government said we have secured or retaken Chibok from Boko Haram. But really, we're hearing other stories about who really is fighting Boko Haram in that region.
The most brazen land acquisition, I would say, is that of Mubi and Maiha. Because Mubi is the second largest city in Adamawa State. And it's the commercial center of the state. So what they've been pushed back by who? Guess who? The hunters.
The hunters.
And civilian JTF. These are very, very motivated people. As a matter of fact, there are people who have suffered a lot of losses in the hands of Boko Haram. People whose daughters have been abducted, people whose wives have been raped, people whose children have scattered all over the place, people that have left the area. These are farmers that can't farm no more. There's no trade going on. So these are people that are motivated. But don't think that they are just illiterates or just farmers, hunters. These are people that are also commanded by educated people.
Yes. Now, the Emir of, is it Kano?
Yeah,
Sanusi,
yes.
He said, hey, citizens, go out. You need to just take things or this into your own hands and help yourselves. Was that a political statement or was it just being realistic?
No, but that has generated a huge attention because we are hearing now that there's a drove of movement going on from all the northern states towards that area by hunters. And that idea is to sensitize people to wake up and defend themselves, since the army cannot do it for them.
And why is the army not doing it? Is it lack of equipment or just no willingness?
Vincent, there's a combination of all that in this thing that's happening there. The Nigerian army has over the years been bastardized, no equipment, no training, no proper recruitment. Secondly, corruption infested, no equipment that they, that they can get from any reasonable country because, take for example, the American government, not ready to sell arms to them because they think the arms are not going to reach the soldiers on the ground. Yeah. So it's a combination of so many things that are happening there.
And now President Jonathan is saying, re-elect me, I'll do even a better job. Is this message resonating?
Well, that's a different ball game for a different day.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be watching very closely to see how things work. And our hearts bleed for the missing girls and many others who are being killed every day.
Definitely.
Leo, thank you very much for joining us today. Well, Leo Kayan is the chief of VOA's House Service. Well, now to Ferguson, Missouri, when the killing of an unarmed black teenager by a white police officer during a street confrontation sparked protests and violence. Many in the small community say they were shocked. Now the town's residents are trying to figure out where to go from here, and some local churches are leading the way. VOA's Aisha Tanzim reports from Ferguson.
For Mike Brown, for Darren Wilson.
Pastor Willis Johnson of Wellspring Church in Ferguson devoted his entire Sunday service to the issue of Michael Brown's shooting death in August. He changed his usual routine and made his congregation stand up and hug one another. He wants the community to start what he admits is a tough conversation.
It's not my challenge or my task to present to people how to think or what to do, but I do believe, and as I do every day within our ministry, challenge people to think and challenge people to do something in some way regarding not only this issue, but the many issues that are human issues that we have to address.
His congregation has been partnering with other churches as well as nearby school districts to help the community deal with the aftermath of Brown's death. He also is trying to give a sense of direction and purpose to people who are grappling with what to do next and how to do it. People like Katie Turnbull.
I think that there's also a lot of drive here to change things, and people don't know what to do with that.
Turnbull came to his church specifically in response to the Brown situation.
It helps me to understand different perspectives, and I think that we all need to try to reach out to one another and understand what everyone is feeling about what's going on.
Turnbull is not alone in this community that is trying to find ways to deal with this issue. But Pastor Johnson fears not everyone is as open-minded.
What I fear is people not not being heard, not seeking to understand, and not thinking through the purposes of our actions, and that's on both sides.
Individuals and small groups in the community seem to be motivated and want to participate in efforts to resolve deep-seated issues of race and socio-economic inequity. But both Turnbull and Pastor Johnson agree that the conversation is not as widespread as it needs to be. They also believe this is not something that can be accomplished in the short term.
That deep, long, kind of drawn out, intense, not only conversation, but work, labor together is going to take a little bit longer, and it's going to require a lot more heavy lifting, and it's going to require us to be long-suffering.
Many in Ferguson say they hope the death of the unarmed teenager was not in vain, and that concrete changes will result in a different relationship between members of the community and their police officials. Aisha Tanzim, VOA News, Ferguson.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, health correspondent Lino Madu discusses men's role in women's global health. Stay with us.
Wherever you are, Voice of America is on air, reaching more than 130 million weekly, worldwide, in more than 40 languages. Online, social media, and breaking news from around the world. On the go, dozens of new features on popular platforms with new apps and trending topics. Voice of America, on air, online, on the go.
What exactly is Ebola?
Can I catch Ebola through the
Are
air?
the people who have it contagious?
What is our government doing about Ebola?
What are the symptoms of Ebola?
You have questions about Ebola? Straight Talk Africa has answers. VOA presents Straight Talk Africa, Ebola, Knowledge is Life, a special town hall meeting with leading experts on the front lines who will answer many of the questions surrounding the Ebola outbreak. VOA presents Straight Talk Africa, Ebola, Knowledge is Life, November 19th only on VOA.
Well, be sure to follow Straight Talk Africa's new Twitter account at VOA Shaka to follow Wednesday's live Twitter feed and updates on the VOA Knowledge is Life Ebola Town Hall Special hosted by Shaka Sali. Also, don't forget to use the hashtag VOA Ebola when contributing to the discussions on social media. Tomorrow's Ebola Special begins at 18:30 UTC. Well, it's time now for Health Report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. Hello, everyone. Women's health has been on the global health agenda for years. The Millennium Development Goals of 2015 are clear indications on how women's health and well-being is a critical part of development. However, some observers say men should not be ignored in addressing women's health. Dr. Harry Strulovici is a global health consultant and founder of the nonprofit organization Life for Mothers. He elaborates on the subject.
I hope that governments and aid organizations recognize the important role that men can play to improve the overall health and well-being of women as well as the overall countries.
If we look at the big picture and the way the global community is approaching global health, what do you think that needs to be emphasized? We've gone through the UN General Assembly recently. What was missing, according to you?
I think that the engagement of men, the role of men was underemphasized, and their role can be extremely positive in bringing about change, specifically for women to have access to health services and to bring down maternal child deaths.
How do we engage men, taking it from ideas and rhetoric to actually action?
Political will is critical in terms of creating a positive and reinforcing environment for men to participate in women's health. On the other side, civil society must play a role in ensuring that women have access to health services. Most of these populations are in rural areas, and therefore the need for community health workers using a mobile health technology to reach out to these women are very, very important. And having a distribution of men to be community health workers, to try and recruit as many men as possible is very important, as well as engaging the male elders to get behind these initiatives will go a long way to ensuring that women get the health service they require.
We're talking about policies, laws that should be put in place or reinforced. And we're talking about behavioral change. What specifically?
Well, behavioral change certainly is going to take a longer time, and the efforts to change gender-based violence and focus on creating gender equality should be driven by the educational system and also by social media. Social media can play a huge role in ensuring that women are made more aware of their options.
So when you think about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, post-2015 agenda, what do you think then should be some of the priorities?
One of the most important factors is bringing down the fertility rates of women. The number of children are as high as 7 children in a family, and it's close to that in Uganda and many other countries. And just bringing down the fertility rate alone will bring down the mortality rate.
What do you say to these people who say that why should we try to control how many kids we have as long as the woman is okay, she can have children, it's a blessing for those who believe?
The situations that you're bringing up are individual situations, and when you look at the overall population of the country through demographic health surveys that are done periodically, you'll find out that in actuality, the number of children that women want are much, much less, in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 children. Therefore, they're not getting access to contraceptive counseling or family planning in reality. The other issue is you could have midwives go out into the field with community health workers and actually explain and show examples of how women suffer and actually have lifelong complications of childbirth, and these are not rare. I think that if men were behind women in terms of the importance for them to give birth in a facility and make their antenatal visits at least 4, this would go a long way to improving their health, as well as being behind contraceptive counseling and family planning.
And that's our Africa Health Report for today. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Lino, thank you very much. Now be sure to watch Lino Madu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Solange Knowles is a dream in cream at a weekend wedding. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Congo, an international human rights group claims that police have executed dozens of people in an anti-gang operation. In Kenya, hundreds take to the streets in Nairobi to protest attacks on women for wearing supposedly immodest clothing. In Nigeria, at least 12 people are killed in a female suicide bomb attack at a cell phone market in Azari. In Cameroon, the military, battling daily cross-border raids by Boko Haram, wants to keep the boundary with Nigeria intact. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Jennifer Lawrence showed up in style at the Los Angeles premiere of the Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1. Jennifer ruled the red carpet at the Los Angeles premiere in a sleeveless white Christian Dior Fall 2014 couture gown with a vintage flair. She was joined on the red carpet by co-stars Liam Hemsworth, Elizabeth Banks, Julianne Moore, and Jenna Malone. The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 hits theaters later this month. Next up, Justin Bieber has a problema. Now, the pop star has been ordered to appear before a court in Argentina for the alleged assault last year of a photographer outside a Buenos Aires nightclub. The Argentine judge gave the singer and one of his bodyguards 60 days to appear in court or face arrest. According to the complaint, the bodyguard, following Bieber's orders, forcefully seized the photographer's camera and mobile phone outside the nightclub in Buenos Aires. Stay tuned. And finally, Solange Knowles is known for her fashion as much as her music, and her weekend wedding didn't disappoint. Solange rocked in an ivory Stefan Roland dress at her New Orleans wedding. The happy bride released a video clip from her wedding on Monday, which shows her dancing with her 10-year-old son to No Flex Zone by Ray Tremord. This is the second marriage for Knowles. Knowles made headlines early this year when leaked video footage showed her attacking Jay-Z with Beyoncé standing nearby. Now, the trio told the Associated Press in a statement at the time that the incident was unfortunate, but they stressed they loved each other. And that is what is trending today. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
At Christmas time, we let in light and we banish shade.
And in our world of plenty, we can spread a smile of joy.
Throw your arms around the world at Christmas time.
But say a prayer and pray for the other ones. At Christmas time, it's hard, but while you're having fun,
there's a world outside your window, and it's a world of dread and fear,
Where a kiss of love can kill you,
and there's death in every tear, and the Christmas bells that ring there are the clanging chimes.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
Listen to this U.S. political expert. He is talking about mistakes conservative Republicans made in 2013 during the Virginia state governor's race.
They were seen as being irresponsible, as willing to endanger the country's present and future because of rigid ideology. That doesn't sell in America. We're a very pragmatic country.
Pragmatic. This word means to be reasonable.
In our story, the professor means that Americans would rather be realistic than support political ideas that might not work. Now, the next time you hear pragmatic,
your American English will be good enough to know what this word means.